Well, as the NFL season kicks off for most teams, this is the new look that all of us will have this year. Now, as I was driving up to the stadium today, empty parking lots, no tailgaters, and as you can see, no fans in the stands. But hey, this is a new norm if we're going to have an NFL season.
Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus television show, here on the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. Let's welcome our co-host this week, the former chaplain of the Washington football team, Mr. Milton Harding. A man Tom Knott once called Mad Mike, the mouthpiece of NCAA maniacs, Mike Baker. Washington football team beat reporter and member of the Fairmont University women's basketball 1,000-point club, Miss Donna Hopkins. One of the most prolific pass catchers in the 20th century, and four-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl wide receiver Gary Clark. And a man who played in the NFL for 14 seasons, and one of the all-time sack leaders in the NFL, Super Bowl pass rusher Tony Mac the Sack McGee.
We love our new home. There's so much space.
We have a guest room now.
But we have ants.
You're slouching again, Ted.
Expired. Expired. Expired.
Thanks, Aunt Bonnie.
It's a lot of house. I hope you can keep it clean.
At least Geico makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
Which helps us save a lot of money.
Oh, Teddy, did you get my friend request?
I'll have to check.
Aunt Joni's here.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. 36 years. Who would have thunk it? We started this 36 years ago, but now for this year, the first time we're pretty happy after the first game. This team showed the Washington football team that they can play ball, and they will show up. Speaking of show up, I got my co-host back here. I got G. You know, he's the coolest thing in the room. He's the only one that makes summer feel like winter. We got Donna Hopkins there, whose sources ain't been right in a long time, but she got this one right. We got Mike Baker there, the professor, but then we got a young man that we kind of lost a little bit last year, Milton Harding. He was on the team when they was at the Super Bowl. When they got to winning last year, he disappeared from us. So what's up, Milt? Good to have you back, man. Tell me a little bit what you saw with that Washington football team on Sunday.
Hey, glad to be back, Tony. Glad to be back. And, you know, and I hate to go all the way back to last year, but, you know, Donna was a little dismal about how things were. This is what winning was what I'm accustomed to. And once you get it in your DNA, you'll have a few bumps along the way, but man, it's good to get a W. I will tell you, it's good to have a dub.
Well, I just want to know where you got accustomed to it because they haven't been winning that much lately. So, where were you? Was rooting for another team? Is that why you left? I'm gonna leave that question there. G, what do you think? Who was he rooting for? He been rooting. He said.
I'm not sure, but unlike Donna Hopkins, I knew the team would win. So. Unlike Donna, who predicted that they.
Well, we got Gary froze a little bit. Donna, you didn't predict.
That's the impact.
No.
That's the impact.
What
That happens, Tony.
I knew that they would win. So.
Tony, that's why he was frozen, because he did not know anything. But this team has basically, Tony and Milton talking about last year when I told him that it was the coaching staff and they needed a reboot. But Tony, this whole team got off to a slow start on Sunday on the offense, special teams, and the defensive end of the ball. But then they got it together because they couldn't pick up first downs. They couldn't run the ball. Passing was off. And Coach Rivera talked about that in the game where he said that Scott Turner, who is the offensive coordinator, was reaching a little bit. And they all needed to kind of like brush off or knock off the rust. But I got a chance to talk to Coach Rivera and Haskins about the game, and this is what they had to say.
He did some really good things, made some really good decisions. Couple things you'd like to see him do, though, is put a little bit more touch on the ball at times. He tried to gun a couple of them in, and because of it, the ball ended up a little bit behind. Instead of really putting that lead throw into it, in other words, he tried to lead the receiver a little bit better. He tried to hit the receiver on the spot. So, I think he was a little bit anxious. He looked like he was having fun, but he looked a little bit anxious at times. And once he settled in, though, and we saw that, he really took command of what we were doing.
For me, it was find a way to win. They found a way to win and beat us last year at their place, and this is our house. And we're killing ourselves. Nothing that they did that really stopped us. So we just got to continue to keep finding ways to win every game. They have big guys up front. Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, Brandon Graham, and all those guys are, athletic players. But once you get them into play 6 or 7 or 8 of a drive, they get tired like anybody else. And that's when we had to figure out ways to extend drives. We couldn't be 3 and out or first down and not getting a second down or a third down, and just trying to find ways to keep them on the field. Because once we did that, we wore them down.
To your other point you asked about Chase's impact on not just the defense, but on the team as a whole. But the impact really is from what the defense does. And that is, if you look at where we scored some of our points, we got them off of turnovers and great field position. Okay, so we scored touchdown on three possessions that started on their side of the 50. So that's huge when you get into those type of situations. And that's what a good pass rush, that's what taking the ball away, that's what good special teams play can do for you.
That's very interesting. He come in and he's been mentioning all facets of the team, and I like that. And that's the way we should start communicating now, not just looking at the offense, the defense, a special team, how they're doing as a team. Mike, were you a little bit surprised with Haskins' performance?
Well, Tony, quite honestly, I want to share one thing with you real quickly right here. And Donna, you nailed it in the piece that you picked out. Let me get it in here right now. What Haskins actually said there was really interesting. He actually said that the big guys on the Philadelphia defensive side of the ball, they ran 7, 8, 9 plays in a row. And he said, like any defensive line, guys will get gassed after a while. And I even mentioned this to Donna when Philadelphia was walking off the field at halftime. And then I looked at the Washington players. The Washington players were all jogging off with real integrity, but the Eagles were walking off the field, and a couple of them had their heads down. They were gassed, Tony. So I think what Haskins said in the piece that Donna just shared, that's exactly what happened. That Philadelphia Eagles was not in the same conditioning as the Washington team, and that made a difference, I thought.
Okay, so Milton, you tell me this. If the quarterback improved, running game was okay, but what about the offensive line? Was that a major reason that the quarterback played well?
Well, I don't know that I can pull those dots together. I will say this: in the early goings, Tony, I was watching some grown men getting blown off the ball back in Dwayne's face, and I'm going, well, no, this is going to be a long day if we don't clean that up. But I can tell you, to their credit, that didn't last through well, it lasted most of the first quarter. After that, man, somebody got their head together, and I think some of that is just pressing. I mean, it's a new day for everybody. So after that, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Dwayne's got enough confidence in himself, but when you got people popping up in your face like that, that's going to bring some jitters. But I think they did all settle down. As Coach Ron said, they settled down and just began to play football.
Tony, I am so glad that Milton said that he could not connect the dots, because the offensive line in the beginning, they struggled. I mean, the running game. But I think Coach Rivera basically said it, that the coaching staff was pressing a little bit on there. He had a conversation with Scott Turner, a quick conversation about maybe doing too much, forcing too many things. And once they settled down, once Dwayne settled down, then they got the running game going a little bit, because Antonio Gibson was the main back. You had Barber coming in, so they had a mixture. So once they got used to what was going on, then you start seeing them gel a little bit towards the end of the second quarter. But Milton, I just connected the dots.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, G ain't said nothing, but if you listen to G, I think the receivers probably made the whole team better, right, G?
Of course. And that's what wins ball games. Wide receivers win mostly 95% of all football games. I think this is finally I think it was a total group effort, and quite honestly, the defense played in the second half. Actually, the second quarter to the second half, they were on point. And there's something that I think that's the bright spot of the Washington football team right now. That defensive line, and the kid from JMU, by the way, who started it all. Let's not forget who started it all.
You could be talking about Jimmy Moreland,
The kid from JMU.
You talking about Charles Haley.
that makes teams win, Put them in the starting lineup, all of a sudden you start to win football games.
I tell you what, I have to agree with you there. And one of the things we have to all be cognizant of the fact that not only was this the first time the coaches all coached together really in a game situation, probably then you have a team. This is the first time that teams played together. Now we're seeing another point where training camp is missed. I know we didn't like it when we played, but you do need that training camp as long as you have your training camp. But what they did show me, which is very important, is if you look throughout the league this year, the teams that are in the best condition will win. And that's what's going to be the thing this year, because you'll see a lot of injury because they did not have training camp. That's a good start they had on Sunday. But you know what? They're not going to be able to start like that against everyone. They're going to have to come out and get it done. And to get it done means you play 4 quarters, not 3.
Right.
But Tom, when you look at it, they were down by 17 points, and Coach Rivera talked about they didn't have anything schemed to get those 17 points. But he said what he told his coaching staff and the players is take one play at a time. And when the defense got those takeaways also, they gave the offense, as Rivera said, great field position where they weren't starting back at their 2015 and so forth. But this just goes back to give the coaching staff, the new coaching staff, kudos, because this team last year would not have won this game. But this coaching staff is a veteran coaching staff that really kind of like settled the players down. And then you saw as Dwayne Haskins being a leader also at halftime, where Rivera was taking an IV, which was planned, but it was Haskins that rallied the troops at halftime, and they came back out, and it was a whole different team.
Turnovers is what made
it. Yeah, exactly.
If we want to be real about it, the turnovers, made them win the football game. Having the ball on their side of the field all the time had them win the football game. At the end of the day,
and let's don't lose sight.
Changed everything.
Yeah, and let's don't lose sight of the fact too that one glaring presence was adjustments being made. I mean, even though we were having good field position, those adjustments that we were making on both sides of the ball, defense and offense, I think proved to be a deciding factor as well.
How many yards did we have rushing, Donna?
80.
As a team.
We didn't get
80 as a
I'm
team.
telling everybody.
Wait a minute, I got a breaking news right here on that subject right there. Adrian Peterson had over 90 yards in Detroit. Oh, wait, how many did you say the team had?
80 yards total, Tony.
And he had 96, I think it was.
Did Detroit win the game?
Well, it doesn't matter. We're not talking about Detroit as a team. Donna, if you want to talk about Detroit, you in the wrong city, homegirl.
They did not win.
Hey, wait,
Tony, but you got a good running back in Barber. I mean, that kid is really.
Now, wait, what was his average, Donna, per carry?
Barber?
Yeah.
Barber had 2 rushing touchdowns.
17 for 29.
Yeah.
Well,
he averaged 1.6 carry. Hold on, Mike. He averaged 1.7 yards a carry.
2 touchdowns.
1.7 yards a carry.
2 touchdowns.
Was 2 yards out.
You know,
thank you, G. Thank you, G.
You run a touchdown 2 yards out.
Tony, you should take a break because
Donna
I'm losing.
can run a touchdown for 2 yards out.
I tell you what, fans, we're going to take a break right now, but as you can see, we're not happy that Adrian Peterson is running for 96 yards in Detroit or 90 plus, and we're running for 80 as a whole team in Washington. Do the math. I can't figure it out. We'll be back in a moment.
Tara, did you know Geico is now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies?
Wow, okay.
That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Idina Menzel to sing your own theme song?
Tara, Tara, look at her go with a fresh cup of joe, getting down to work early, following her dreams into taxidermy.
It's tax attorney.
I read that wrong, oh yeah!
Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th.
Well, as you know, on this show, we always try to get all facets of the team. We talk about how they played, and they played well. We'll be jumping around. This is a different year for us this year. We'll be doing other things, just like that breaking news. That guy that used to be here, I can't think, he's a Hall of Famer or something, but he beat our whole team rushing by himself. But with that being said, that defense, Donnie, you can't throw them under the bus now. I tell you what, they are talking about them all over the country that this could be the best defensive line in the NFL.
Well, Tony, I told you that this defense was deep this year. Everybody was talking about who's starting. It doesn't even matter who's starting because
Gary, did she tell me this defense was deep this year?
I did say the defense was not.
Mike, do y'all ever remember
conversations on this? She was saying that we weren't deep enough. I don't know.
That's what I thought.
Let's roll the reel back. I said the defensive line was deep across. And Tony, I did say that they should draft Young, but you were like, I don't know, Chase Young. But guess what, Tony? He's a playmaker. Monte Sweat over on the other side. Ionitis, Payne, Allen, Kerrigan, Tony, set Dexter Manley's record, broke that with 92 tackles. Before I rolled the piece,
92 sacks.
A little bit about that. Well, let's roll the piece, and we'll talk about that. They don't want to say nothing.
A long time, seen a lot of, really productive players come through, and to be at the top of that list now is pretty special to me, for sure. Expected to come out and make plays, and I mean, to get 8 sacks, I don't know if you can ever go into a game and say, oh yeah, we knew we were going to get eight sacks, but that's a good way to start the season. I mean, we got a lot of productive dudes in this room, and I was glad we were able to showcase that a little bit today.
Get my feet wet, get them pre-game jitters out, first game jitters out. But once I got out there and I got going, I felt like I belonged for sure. I know. Well, it feels good, but I know. I feel like our whole defense knows that we can definitely be better, though. I know personally myself, I made a lot of mistakes out there that I know I can get corrected.
I made a play on the ball. I couldn't get to the end zone, but, next time we're going to get there. It was our first game with the whole the D-line this year, with Chase Young, Sweat, Ryan Kerrigan, Deron Payne, all the guys, and we got out there, we seen what they was capable of doing, the whole world knew what the potential was, but today they showed it, and that make it less more pressure for us as a secondary, knowing that the quarterback is a little itchy in the pocket, knowing our D-line is coming out though.
Well, you know what? I'm going to just tell you what, Donna, you made a very good statement, but I think it was a little bit early. You don't call a guy a playmaker after one game. I'm hoping that he can do that time and time again. But as a defensive line, this defensive line has shown, even before he was here, before Chase was here, that they were a very good defensive line. Their biggest problem is going to be, who do you play and when do you play them? And I tell you what, that's a great problem to have. When we were winning, that was one of the problems we had. We had some guys that could pass rush. We had guys that could do it all. But one thing, Kerrigan, 92 sacks, that's very good. Whenever you're in an NFL career, and even though I haven't been that good about him lately, but anytime a defensive lineman can get anywhere 90 or more sacks during their career, that's a playmaker. So that's what we got to look for Chase to do.
Oh, nice, yeah. You also had a lot more opportunities to get those sacks. If your offense is one and you out in 1 and 3, you out in easy shit. You get a lot more opportunities on defense to get sacks than when you have an offense that has time possession and we control the game much as Dexter's defense, your defense, Tony, Charles Mann's defense. The offense kept the ball a lot longer than. But it's a great accomplishment no matter what. Like you said, anybody gets 90 sacks, you're balling 100%. You're balling, definitely.
That's right.
Yeah. For Kerrigan,
for a long time.
Yeah. For Kerrigan, in the years when we were kind of lean in the W columns, he was still producing, and but when they didn't have anything on the other side or up the middle to enhance what he was doing, that young man has some serious technique for getting to the quarterback. And so now with teams having to pay so much attention to that interior and Sweat or Chase on either side, he's going to have some more opportunities. I mean, a lot more opportunities.
But Mike, don't you think we're getting better defensive back and linebacker play as well?
Yeah, I wanted to get to that. Yeah, I'm really happy, obviously, with our secondary, with Moreland stepping up because Fuller couldn't play. I'm really glad Fuller's back. They loved him from Virginia Tech.
Mike, they stepped up again. Who stepped up?
Your guy from James Madison.
But
Tony, I wanted to get back.
Mike, you were supposed to act like you didn't even hear him speaking.
I want to get back. Yeah.
He want to bring Charles Haley back.
No, I know. I wanted to get back to that line real quickly because Don and I, we took a look at that line, and one thing Jack Del Rio did that he substituted all through that game.
Yeah.
And if you look at the minutes each of those guys had, they were very evenly split. So he actually played. If you saw that graphic on the wall, he played all those guys, and it was a pretty even split for the most part. Of course, Payne got most of the playing time, but nonetheless, if you looked at the Eagles, they didn't have the platooning. They lost a defensive end early in the game, and apparently he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. They were already lean on the defensive line. They didn't have the people that we had. It was just a matter of time before we could wear them down. I really love the secondary. You know that kid, Troy Apke, everybody sort of ignored for 2 years. He's got really blazing speed. I know basically Apke and Moreland got beat on one play,
Fabian?
but they both, excuse me, Darby got beat on one play, but they all came back and played well.
Hey,
How
Tony.
about the linebackers, Donna?
Yeah, they played well. I mean, Boston came up with an interception. It was, and then you got London Collins. So the safeties and the linebackers really mixed well together, Tony. Because when you look at the start of the game, they couldn't get off the field on third downs, and then they changed up some things, got a little more pressure. And Tony, go back to the defensive line. They finally started blitzing and mixing up a lot of things. What did you see defensively as far as the line, as far as what Jack Del Rio was doing in the second half a little bit more? Was it just them settling down? Or what do you see in that defensive line as far as the scheme up front with the changing parts?
Well, what it is, you said it right. They settled down, but schematically they start playing and having the schemes go where the player can do it well. In other words, we knew Dexter could get upfield. We knew Charles had a deft inside move. So that's what you do schematically within your defense. You put plays in there where they can make plays. I know there's one thing that you guys may not have known about Chase. He had one of those old school moves when you do the hook and you come up under and you do the uppercut. That was in that picture that you had down there. And I tell you about that move.
How many moves, Tony, did he have?
And then, you break your hips down. And with that move, you're always going to get to the quarterback or you're going to be held. And I see that. But that's what they start doing. Del Rio, he put them in the position to be successful. And that's what this team needs. We haven't had that. Let's be realistic with it. Over the past few years, offensively or defensively, it doesn't seem that they made adjustments at halftime, which they did on Sunday. And then we also need to play our players. We need to give them an opportunity to perform the best that they can play. That means making the scheme be whereas it fits them.
Yeah. Tony, I was looking at Wentz's face on some of those plays. I mean, you could tell. I was telling Gary and Don earlier, you can kind of tell the adjustments were being made by the way his play was. I mean, it began to fall off because what he was seeing, he wasn't seeing anymore. And then that line was coming too. So I thought those are the adjustments that were taking place within the game. And that's something that Coach Gibbs was, I mean, a lot of people may or may not know this, and I'm sure you do, Gary, but there were times when teams might come in and get a long drive back in the Richie Pettibone days when he was coaching. But after that, and they figure out all that they wanted to do, those adjustments were almost made within minutes of what he wanted to do in that moment in time. And so, and I got that from Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles was saying Pettibone for adjustments was probably the best he's ever seen,
Well, Milton, I just want to ask you one thing. You asked Gary that question. I think Pettibone was my coordinator. What, I didn't play? I didn't make adjustments? Is that what you're trying to say?
You played on the offensive side of the ball, I guess Milton was saying.
Right. He's going to go to offensive player. He going to say, Tony, you know what Pettibone did. He's going to go to Gary. Hey, man, you know what? We're going to have to, don't disappear on me now.
There's one thing to intentionally disappear, and there's another thing to just disappear.
Right. But you know what? And I know we're jumping around, but just look around and let's just look at the East real quick. Did you see a defensive line that played like Washington's defensive line did on Sunday?
No.
If you look at that if you look at the East, they can rule that the defense can rule that division if they want to.
100%. Don, how many sacks we have again? 8, 11? How many sacks?
8.
8 sacks. That's hard. I mean,
8 and 3 takeaways.
Have that after 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, they're gonna have to be dealt with. I don't care who it is in the East. Dallas, Giants, they're gonna have to deal with that line. I don't care what the might be.
Yeah. And the beauty about this team, Tony, is this is a young team. I mean, and they haven't even reached their potential yet towards as the season goes along. But the reason why this team is in shape because Ron Rivera said in training camp that he wanted to play up tempo. So when they got into the real situation, they were already used to that.
We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, as you notice, we talked a lot about offense, defense, but it's three facets to the team. And as Donna said, this is a young team, so they got good people on special teams as well. We'll be back in a moment.
Gene, did you know Geico is now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies?
That's great.
That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? John Stamos to knit you a scarf?
All finished, Gene. Enjoy.
Thank you.
I give.
The stitch work is impeccable.
That's just a double fleck pattern with a reverse garter stitch. No big deal.
Is your hair this soft?
Softer.
Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th.
Well, you know, during this pandemic, we're trying to do different things. We want this to be an interesting and an exciting broadcast for you guys. So now we're going back and we're taking the new school and looking at the old school. This is why we're on the couch right now. And I got G-Man on the couch. G, they're saying that on Sunday, Haskins gave a good speech at halftime and it really motivated the team, really got them going in the right direction, even though he's a young guy. Now, you've been on a team where you played with some great quarterbacks. You've been to the Super Bowl with him. Has this ever occurred during your time that a quarterback made a speech like that? I know Joe Theismann used to say a few things, but he never said a lot like that.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, Joe Theismann and all the quarterbacks I played with, he probably was the most enthusiastic about giving some type of, halftime speech. But for the most part, it came from other players that gave the halftime speech. Very rarely was it a quarterback that came in and gave us a rah-rah speech that got us fired up to go back out there. It's one of the defensive players, one of the offensive players, or a combination of both. They're really not that position. So it's great to see that that young man took the initiative to go out there and get his team fired up.
You know, Gary, I know when we played, it was really predicated on what the team was doing or which part of the team was doing good or bad. If the defense was doing bad, we seem to be the most vocal at halftime. Let's pull it together and everything. If the offense is doing good, they say, let's score more points. But one thing about it is, that's when you got some team leaders. And that's one thing we've been talking about this team for the last few years, that they did not seem to have the team leaders that they needed there. Right there, that tells me that's one person in the room. I know we got defensive leaders and everything, but we got a person on offense now that's willing to lead this team. And now that you look at it, we're not going to take one game and act as if that is going the game and they're ready to go to the Super Bowl. But it's anything that we can see progress. Because I'm going to just be truthful with you. We haven't seen a lot of progress in the last few years.
And
let's keep it real.
And why not? Why not build upon the good things that happen? Because like you said, a lot of times there's been no good. There's been only bad to talk about. And it's nice to have pleasant surprises. It's nice to know that, you put a team on the field that even if they're scheduled to lose, they win. And that's huge. When you win the ones that you're supposed to win, you're supposed to win those games. When you win the games that you're picked to lose, that's motivation. So all of a sudden we know if we put together a string of 3 to 4 wins in a row, all of a sudden now the team that's supposed to be the dweller of the NFC East becomes the beast of the East, and they're the team that everybody's like, wow. And then as a team, you start to believe it. You start to believe, no, we're a really good football team. You can't beat us.
Well, looking at this team right now, what do you think is the dominating factor on the offense? Is it the running game? What do you think?
I think right now, I truly do think it was a team effort. Being able to get turnovers on that side of the field where we have to only drive 40 yards, 30 yards into the end zone, that's a big difference to have to drive 80. 70-yard drive,
Exactly.
80-yard drive,
Shorten the field.
60-yard drive. That side of the field become strong because if you look at the stats, our stats were basically average on offense. I mean, they were like, average rushing, even on the receiver side, which is very rare, but let me say, Tony, on the receiver side,
You know I was going to ask you about the receivers sooner or later. I know
no big numbers put up.
Donna's going to tell me now, and I don't want to talk over you on this, and I don't want you to get away either, though. I noticed I ain't heard a lot about the receivers from you today. What's up?
Well, I've been letting you guys, dictate the show because, I'm a gentleman and I just allow you guys to dictate the show. But on the receiver side of the things, our main guy, Terry, came out. He had a solid game. He had 5 catches for 60-some yards, I believe, maybe 61 yards. Solid game, solid effort. But again, we got the ball in certain situations where, we're not going to catch an 80-yard pass because you're on this side of the ball, So it's going to be interesting to see. But the most important thing was all facets play good enough to win the football game. And that's the most important part, period, because you don't want one facet just playing great and the rest of the facets of the team are playing bad. They had all facets come in, and when they had a chance to take advantage of the opportunity that they received, they took advantage of it.
Now, you heard it here on the couch first, and G was right about that. All facets played well. That's what's important about a good team. That's when you have letdowns at some places and you will not at others. Speaking of playing well, if we don't pay our bills, we won't be on air. So I tell you what, we're going to pay a few bills, and we'll talk a little bit about those special teams. This time, the good side. Even though Donna's cousin, Hopkins, he missed a couple, but we'll be back in a moment.
Geico's been helping people save money for over 75 years. They've really stood the test of time, much like these majestic Rocky Mountains, which must be named after the Rocky...
That would be Rocky the Flying Squirrel, Mr. Gecko, sir. Obviously.
Come on, Bullwinkle. They're named after...
First President George Rockington.
That doesn't even make any sense, Mr. Winkle.
Geico, over 75 years of savings and service.
For years, a staple of the winning teams that went to the Super Bowl for the Washington football franchise has always had 3 complete parts of the team. And, over the last few years, we have just been begging to see more touchdowns or more field position or better plays or turnovers from our special team. No matter what occurred on Sunday, we saw improvement. And that's the one thing that they need, because special teams is a big part of it, guys. And I would like for you guys, and Bill, tell me, what do you think the special team did on Sunday?
Well, first of all, let's start with Tress Way. Okay, so I mean that's the statement in itself. Hall of Famer probably, if he keeps this up. But I thought it was phenomenal. We had the perfect storm. Field position was in our favor the majority of the day. And a lot of that came from how well he was kicking. I don't know the stats for his average, but Philadelphia didn't have cakewalks after that second quarter. Almost toward the end of the game, it was I thought quite a display.
You know, Tony, where they have improved also is that penalties. They only had, I think, one penalty in that home game. And let me correct you, Tony. Hopkins only had one miss, not a few.
I came back and said one. I was just messing with you.
People struggled. He was a little rusty, but guess what? He came back and nailed two more in the end to help this team get this win. But the special teams got a lot of young guys on there, Tony, that are making plays. And I think you'll be impressed. They kept the same coach from last year because he did a pretty good job. But it's the turnovers, it's the penalties that they didn't commit that they did in the past.
You know, they only had one penalty, huh?
The Tressway.
One penalty. Tressway.
The Tressway situation that Milton was talking about is really key because there were 2 times in the game where it could have gone either way, and Tressway put them inside the 20, one time down near the 9-yard line. And, you know, you already had a defense that was feeding off of Wentz, and now all of a sudden they could all bring it because they were down close to the goal line. So Way was responsible for keeping him down there almost the whole game.
Wow. Yeah. I'm so sorry, guys. I was thinking, when Tony said, you know, the 3 parts that was part of the Super Bowl that got teams, the residents of the Super Bowl, I thought y'all meant Monk, Clark, and Sanders. My bad. I was I didn't realize y'all were talking about the fastest. My bad.
The Sanders.
Y'all to talk about Monk and Sanders, you know. My bad.
You know, on a serious note, though, Donna mentioned something. Even through that whole game.
Hold on, what? You said
it happens. It happens occasionally.
Serious, you know, Donna, that don't go to
I wondered how long. I wondered how long you was going to let that go.
No. I thought that game overall for Washington was a fairly clean game for penalties this early in the year, not having the reps that they would normally have had. But, I mean, I thought it was extremely clean. And then you got to remember, from last year, or the last couple of years maybe, to what we have now. Again, that's another testament to the coaches.
Hey, Milton, it wasn't that clean because the defense had about 5 or 6 to start the game. Come on.
Well, the start of the game, yeah, but I'm talking about when we got on the
it's all part of the game. It's all part.
One of the things we had to do is that in previous seasons, it looked like we would make mistakes. In fact, Collins had one too that should not have been at his level of play. We seem to make them at the wrong. It's no good time to have a penalty, but we seem to make them at the wrong, shooting ourselves in the foot. But I thought overall the game was clean. What was that one?
Don't let Donna change your opinion.
No, he did it because Collins did like one that was uncharacteristic.
Gary, when she jacked up Tony, I knew I was just, you know, what was?
I was just giving the facts.
Well, you know what, though? Think about it, guys, and let's don't get ahead of ourselves here because you know what? A lot of those things that did transpire got worse as the year went on, and you're going to have different players in there and different opportunities. So we're talking about one game now, and it's good to be.
Tony, we didn't have one game to talk about in a long time. Let's talk about
let's get to it is kind of refreshing.
Let's enjoy this and let's carry it on to the next game.
Well, let's talk about it. You know, it's some other people, I guess, it's some other people that I feel is very important around here as a team, and we'll talk about them a little later. But I think, how did the Ravens? How did they look, guys?
Hey, Tony, the Ravens win all the time. Can we spend a little bit more time on the Washington football team?
You know,
they tend to win all the time.
There's a lot to talk about here, though, fellas. Lamar Jackson, there's a great story, and I know I think Donna heard it too. And that is in the offseason, he spent an enormous amount of time with film. And he noticed that his accuracy over 10 yards was not what he wanted it to be. So he worked on that consistently throughout the offseason. And if you looked at Sunday's game, he had well over 6 passes beyond 10 yards, 2 of them for touchdowns. And, of course, Mark Andrews, that one-hand catch in the end zone. Mark Andrews is a beast. And, of course, Brown and Ingram. I mean,
Wait a minute, Mike.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute.
They're hot stuff, guys. Hot stuff.
I hope he has some over 10 yards. It's 10 yards. I can take over 10 yards.
In terms of his.
And wait a minute. Not only that, G, he act like he was ready for that. He got more information on the Ravens than he does on the Washington.
What's that?
He come out with stats and everything.
I think you got to hedge your bets, right, Donna?
Hey, Tony, you know what? First he was Dallas. You know how he jumped the wagon.
Yeah, we found that out. Yeah.
Let's talk about that game, Mike. Let's talk about the Dallas game.
Yeah, how about that, Mike? Tell me a little bit about that game.
You know, guys, I'd really like to talk about the Ravens. And no, I'm serious. You know, Patrick Queen. I mean, come on, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. They are a bona fide team. I mean, if they're not in the AFC Championship this year, I mean, they are.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to say we're not bona fide, Mike?
No, I'm talking about the AFC.
WFT. We're not bona fide?
No, AFC. AFC.
No, bona fide team.
We're in the NFC.
For all hate mail, for all hate mail, please send it to P.O. Box 1310.
Oh my!
But no, you know what though, Mike, and we're going to do that this year because we should talk about that team. We should talk about the Ravens as well. We should talk a little basketball. We need to talk everything because this thing, and you know, this pandemic, we haven't really talked about it, guys. But
Tony, that's only when the Washington football team plays bad do we talk about those other things.
So we got a chance to just talk.
I want to listen to Donna Hopkins talk about the Washington football team. And
how about
I hate that.
I do have a question for one of you guys.
Yeah.
What on offense will be our dominance, and will it be running the ball or passing or a combination?
Passing.
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to speak on this. It was in my notes as well. I'm going to be.
You got notes? You got notes? We don't do it like that, man. We just come off the top of the. Nah, I'm playing.
Gary told me if I expected to last, I better take some. I better take some notes. So anyway, all of the hype, and it's legit, I believe. All of the hype on Gibson, and so I was, I grabbed my popcorn. I was ready to see some real serious explosive work from him. And now everybody got off to a slow start. And I believe he had some flashes of stuff he could do. I mean, he's 225, 6'2", 225. And I guess I got a little disappointed. I wanted to see more. But to the whole offense's credit, I think Sunday was about as vanilla as you could get, not knowing what that play scheme, what the offensive coordinator schemes might be, throughout the whole year. But I would have liked to have seen more of Gibson featured based on all the hype that came out. I know Barber's solid because he ran against us when we played them a couple of years ago. So it doesn't surprise me when he was at Tampa Bay. So it doesn't surprise me that he had some success. But I would have liked to have seen more Gibson, really. And maybe his is the passing game and not so much the run game.
Where's Bryce Love? Where's Bryce Love, everybody? Donna, you got the inside sources. What's going on?
Well, it's just the Gibson fit into the scheme that they set out for Sunday against the Eagles. But I think it's going to be a combination of all three areas on offense as Haskins comes along and gets better and more comfortable with the offense. They're going to really gel with that running game. And then the passing game, as Gary always likes to call out, Terry didn't even have his type of game. That's because the offense was still gelling. But I think it's going to take all three of those areas, the passing game, the running game, and Haskins getting more comfortable. It's not going to be just one area of the offense. For them to be successful, I think you're going to see a little bit of all of that mixed together.
Yeah, and that speaks what you're saying to. It speaks to they were very balanced, both passing and running on Sunday. I think that's going to be
the passing game dominated the rushing.
Dominates a strong word. It was
away,
fairly balanced for, and I think that's what you're going to get out of Scott's offense is a balance.
If you take away our win and you just look straight at the stats, our rushing game, we don't look like we had a rushing game.
Well, that's true. That's true. And to your point about the passing game, there was a segment in the third quarter, I believe it was, that Haskins threw about 3 slants to McLaurin. And those they were things of beauty to see the timing on them. You could tell there was some work. There was some work going on there because those passes were being made when Washington needed to do something. And so they were very consistent, very timely. And he hit about 2 or 3 right in a row. Even young man Inman. I'm hoping I hope he works out because Gary, I think you might get a call if we don't see a little more step up in his offense. He might get a call.
The person that on the receiving end of things right now, the person that tends to be out of the first game was Sims. He's the guy that looked like he catch it. He was getting 15 yards or more a pop. You know what I'm saying? So that has a lot to do with it too. Like, with Terry, the best thing about Terry is if I'm averaging 12.2 yards, catch, that's the first down each time I touch the ball. There you go.
There you go.
The thing about it, all the receivers that were involved almost all averaged over 10 yards a catch. Thomas didn't, but he's right at 9.2. So when you look at those things, that's strong. Because every time a receiver catches the ball, I'm getting their first down because we win championships.
Yeah. Hey, guys, before we go to break, can I, there's another team in this town, and I know we only want to talk about the Washington football team.
Oh, my God. There you go again, Mike.
No, I just want to bring this in, and I feel bad for our World Series champs because they lost Strasburg, Castro. They were real high on Starlin Castro. Zimmerman, of course, had to opt out. Ross had to opt out. But I went back and looked at last year, the contributions they made, and I subdivided it by 3. If Strasburg had a pitch this year, we would have had 7 more wins. Castro had already won 2 games for us, 5. He was batting 300. Zimmerman would have been worth at least 4 wins. Ross, 3 wins. This would have put us right back into the hunt for one of those 2 wild cards. And next week,
did we make the wild cards, Mike?
It ain't over until it's over. But I will say next week there are 2 relievers. One is a guy they brought up, never pitched was pitched in the minors, never brought up to the majors, is killing it right now. A kid called Finnegan. And there's another guy that throws the most amazing sinker I've ever seen. And next week I'd like to talk about the possibility of giving them a chance to start since they're young players, since we've been having some problems obviously with our starters. But we can talk about that next week. You know what? I'd love to take a break, Tony, because when we come back, we've got to spend at least 10 minutes on the picks, that.
Oh, no, we got to do basketball too.
All right.
Wait a minute. You guys don't want to talk about the picks because when we got down to it last year, certain people that had on blue shirts didn't want to pay. We'll be back in a moment.
We were tired, Tony. We were tired.
Look at your camera, and you know who I was referring to.
No.
We'll be back in a moment.
We love our new home. There's so much space.
We have a guest room now.
But we have ants.
You're slouching again, Ted.
Expired. Expired. Expired.
Thanks, Aunt Bonnie.
It's a lot of house. I hope you can keep it clean.
At least Geico makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
Which helps us save a lot of money.
Oh, Teddy, did you get my friend request?
I'll have to check.
Aunt Joni's here.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
Well, it's time now to start, I guess, talking about who they will have to face. And they got a pretty good team coming up, Donna, do they not?
Yeah, Tony, quarterback Cal Mary, Coach Rivera talked about him, that this is a guy that really played well in their win I mean, he said that they've got to come out to make sure that they can rotate quick, that this guy is active. So it's going to be a tough. And then receiving wise, Tony, they've got Hopkins, Fitzgerald, Aaron, and Edmond. So the defense got their work cut out this week again. But the quarterback, they've got to be able to contain him.
And they got a pretty good running game down there as well. And like you said, the quarterback is a playmaker, another version of the gentleman up in Baltimore. So I think it's going to be tough. And when you get a mobile quarterback, I know that's the one thing we used to hate when I played. You get a mobile quarterback, you can't take many chances. You have to keep them in they're in the pocket. You have to make sure that you keep somebody in their lane, their throwing lanes, and those kind of quarterbacks are hard to defense. And they got a pretty good defense out there in Arizona as well. So this is a good test for them. And we're not going to compare what was transpiring on their last game, because it's a whole different team. But what we do want to see, and you guys can chime in on this, if we want to see improvement in each facet.
We're going to dominate, Tony. Cardinals don't stand a chance. It's not even going to be a good game. We're going to dominate out in Phoenix.
I'm glad that this team is not listening to you.
We're going to dominate, Donna.
I thought Donna was going to let that go.
The defensive line is going to rock that running quarterback's behind.
I don't know. Kyler Murray, I tell you what, you can't rush him. I mean, he scrambles out.
We're going to rush him, and we're going to sack him, and we're going to have 11 sacks this week.
And I'll tell you one thing. They've got to contend with Budda Baker, who some consider the best safety in the game, and can not only cover one-on-one, but will come up to the line.
Oh, they're going to be rubbing the Budda all day long. They're going to be rubbing the Budda. They're going to be rubbing that Budda. He's going to wish that he wasn't the Budda no more.
This is going to be a good game to test us on both sides of the ball for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think they got some horses down there that know how to get after a quarterback. And they got a quarterback that knows how to get after horses. I saw him take one to the barn this past Sunday, that little 30, I guess about a 30-yard run that Kyler Murray. He's a real deal. And what scares me about him is he's got a year on his belt. So he's got a little more confidence. It was almost like and then it doesn't help.
Mel, our defensive line is John Wayne. Our defensive line is John Wayne. That's the best cowboy you can ever have. Let them go and do whatever they got.
It doesn't hurt to have Hopkins.
I'm not worried about it.
It doesn't hurt to have a wide receiver of that caliber on your team either. So I just say it'll be a good test for us.
I think it'll be a good test. Two young teams.
I do think we'll win that game.
Can we talk basketball before we go to before we end the show here, Don? I know we got about a minute and a half left.
Well, yeah, you came to the right person, but we want to say congratulations to the Washington Mystics because they're back in the finals again. They came in as the 8th seed, and then they made it all the way to be in the championship round. So congratulations to them. And in the NBA, the Lakers are just waiting on the Clippers and Denver, who pushed it to a 7th game. And everybody is questioning in the East, what happened to Milwaukee? Miami just walked them down. Milwaukee is out again, and they were supposed to be the right team. But we all know in the end that the Lakers will be the champs.
But you know what? The one thing that did happen to them, as you said, they depended on their MVP, and he's not all the way MVP medicine right now. He's just part of he's a Band-Aid right now. He's not the whole rap. And I tell you what, the reason I don't like that, he got to be able to shoot outside. He can do a lot of things. But then the other thing about him, he's like a lot of young athletes. He stay hurt.
Yeah, Tony, we got to say goodbye. We got to say goodbye, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Donna, because we all know you won the picks last year along with everybody else. I'm just going to tell you the game, and then you can tune in next week and see how we picked, because we'll pick after the show. New York at Chicago, Atlanta at Dallas, Carolina at Tampa Bay, New England at Seattle, Baltimore at Houston. I'll get their picks, Tony, as you say goodbye, and we'll see who's really good next week.
And make sure you look next week, fans. We want you to stay up with us because Mike, he will call it on us like he did last year, and we're not going to let him get away. But one thing we say, we're not saying goodbye to you guys. We're saying in the minute. We'll see you next week.